Check, check, check. Check 1, 2. Welcome to the Stadium Pulse, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing today? Things may look a little bit different. It might be because we're trying out a new setup. So I would love to hear your thoughts on it. If my mic is messing up, I've been dealing with some issues all day. It is a beautiful, beautiful Thursday afternoon here in North Texas. And you know what's even more beautiful? This goddamn college football slate. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's everything you could ever want. And we have a fantastic show for you. If you did not watch the Wednesday show, traditionally it's on Tuesday, but because of technical difficulties, we've been pushed it to this week on Wednesday. Traditionally, it'll be Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Sunday is TBD just because I will not be in North Texas. I will be somewhere within the United States. We'll try to potentially get a show out. It's TBD if we will be able to do that. But sooner or later, you'll get my reactions to week 5 of the college football season. We will be talking about Ole Miss versus LSU. Ole Miss 1.5-point favorites. We'll talk about Mike Gundy and John Mateer as the title talks about that as well. And then we'll dive into Ohio State and Washington, something that has grown on my radar a little bit to a point where I wasn't going to preview it. Then I really understood the ramifications of that preview. How are you guys doing? This is the Stadium Pulse, a college football show, all powered by Kretschmann Media. My name is Tegan Randolph, your host. If this is the first time that you've seen this channel, this page, anything across the board, the one thing you'll take away is that it is only college football around here. So if you love college football, I promise you, you have found the right spot. But if you also like NBA, NFL, maybe even some boxing content, go to the channels tab on the Stadium Pulse. I promise you, you can find some additional content. But check out some of the college football stuff before you go anywhere. Like I said at the top, Ole Miss is favored against LSU. Will LSU's offense wake up? That's the first question we ask when previewing this game. We have two programs, two teams with intriguing dynamics. We could talk about Whit Weeks dating Lane Kiffin's daughter all we want, but let's actually talk about what's going to happen on Saturday, because this game has insanely big, just massive implications. Whatever adjective, I couldn't pick one in the moment. And that is primarily because LSU, if you have not watched a Brian Kelly press conference, it's a pressurized system right now. It is a program that is feeling the weight of expectations from the Bayou more than any other program across the country, arguably right there with like Penn State. Brian Kelly is feeling the heat, and he's at least showing it in terms of the results of being not good enough and wanting the respect of the reporters who ask the questions. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I implore you to go do your research on it, because Brian Kelly's been ripping into some reporters for the questions that they've been asking. Fair questions, probably poorly timed. And then on the other side, we have Ole Miss, a program coming off of a season that they were projected to go and make the college football playoff with Jackson Dart and all the guys that they got with an incredible transfer portal class, and disappointed. And you kind of left yourself looking at 2025 in a completely different lens, in just terms of, we don't know what we're going to get from Ole Miss. We know the offense is going to be fine, but we are due for regression on the defensive side of the ball. And is that good enough in the 12-team playoff era to get to the college football playoff? We don't know. We thought Austin Simmons was the guy. We have Trinidad Chambly from Ferris State University Ferris State. Point that on a map and I'll give you a cookie. I'll give you $5 and a handshake. He has been balling out. He looked incredible against Tulane. They may have found their guy accidentally. I thought Austin Simmons was going to be the guy for them. Struggles a little bit. Injury happens. And with one man stepping up and playing well, you got to give it to the hot hand. And he's going to be the starting quarterback for Ole Miss. Now, we've talked about both sides, but we have to talk about the matchup at the end of the day. My number one question to the top of the show, what are we going to get from the LSU offense? Garrett Nussmeier still dealing with that injury. Who's going to step up in the wide receiver room? Is it going to be Caden Durham who's going to be able to be the force running the football? Once again, we're looking at a position with an LSU offense that is being highly reliant on Nussmeier magic. And with that comes also turnovers and problems with Garrett Nussmeier. So can they run the ball against a defense that is going to allow you to run the football? Caden Durham, biggest X factor in this game. Goes to the second point. What is the Ole Miss rushing defense going to be? Are they going to allow LSU to test those waters? They believe on their side of the coin that they really haven't had to be a ground and pound team up till this point. Very similar with Penn State and the explosives on the outside with their wide receivers. Are they going to be a team that can instantly click it on when they need to be that? Can they change their identity on a dime? That's to be seen. I think of the red zone efficiency between these two programs. We have Ole Miss, who has gotten to the red zone 25 times. They've scored 24 of them, while LSU's gotten there 17 times and scored on 14. I think those are real dynamic type of metrics when we're talking about an Ole Miss program whose biggest test may have been Tulane, if I'm remembering correctly. Oh, they played Kentucky, didn't they? LSU, a team that's played a Clemson program that at this point looks like this year's Florida State. And if you disagree with me, I promise you go check out the channel. We have a video on that. But in terms of an actual prediction, what do we think about this game? We have all the ingredients in front of us. We have an Ole Miss program at home, new quarterback, new kid on the street that looks like he could be a potential Heisman contender if he plays well enough in this game. You have Garrett Nussmeier in this LSU program with all this pressure to make a college football playoff run. This is the year. You have a quarterback wearing the number 18 for the first time in over 20 years. What are you going to get from them on Saturday? These games have been fireworks every single time they've played on the football field. And when we're talking about a game script, I really do lean towards LSU, surprisingly. I've seen a lot of people lean into the Ole Miss hype, and I understand that. Lane Kiffin's going to throw the kitchen sink. He's going to test Blake Baker, but I think Blake Baker is going to be able to get that win against the matchup of a Lane Kiffin offense. These are two young quarterbacks that Ole Miss has been putting out there with Austin Simmons and Chambly. I think they're going to show that in this game. Blake Baker's going to throw enough at them with guys like Perkins, Weeks. Their secondary is increasingly improved and seems to be getting every single weekend. I trust that matchup a little bit more. And when you have a veteran quarterback on LSU's side of the ball who is trying to jumpstart an offense while he's been injured with a dynamic running back that they haven't really leaned into, I trust them to be able to get just enough on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm not expecting this Ole Miss offense to be able to put up, 28 points in the first half. I expect probably some signs of this is a younger team. Now, I understand a lot of people have this trust that Lane Kiffin's going to be able to get out to a fast start. They've played well at home. I get that. But this is more to the credit of my trust with a guy like Blake Baker to be able to halt that momentum a little bit because he's got the guys he needs on the defensive side of the ball. And I think this is where we begin to see the depth that this LSU defense has because of what they've been able to pull in the transfer portal, because their secondary is going to be able to come up to the task. I think this game's going to be ugly. I understand where the line is. I believe it started out with an LSU favorite, and now it's gone to Ole Miss -1.5, and I completely understand that. By kickoff, it wouldn't shock me if it gets back to a pick'em. But with that in mind, I'm going with LSU to win this football game. I'm trusting Garrett Nussmeier, even with him not being 100%, to find a way to win. If this was the 2024 LSU team, I'm expecting an Ole Miss blowout. But I'm trusting the veteran experience and the need to win. Even though they've been undefeated up to this point, it feels like they still need to prove themselves to the rest of the country. Do I agree that they're a top 4 team in the country? Probably not. But do I think that this LSU program is still incredibly good and talented? Yes, I do. So I'm picking them to win against Ole Miss. Nothing better than a grill of mine. This is not an ad, but fantastic. We're talking black cherry vanilla, a flavor that if you said gross to, I'm judging you a little bit. Mike Gundy got fired. The greatest coach in Oklahoma State history got fired. Something I said on the show when we were talking about head coaches on the hot seat, that after losing to Tulsa at home, I understood. And after some of the details have come to light, if you did not know, Mike Gundy had to take a pay cut. There's friction internally between leadership and himself for a long time. This is a coach very much like Dabo Swinney that is not really with the times of where college football is going. He's an old school head coach. He's a guy that if you ever got him in front of a microphone, it's going to be electric. Sparks are going to fly. He's one of the most entertaining personalities in all of college football. The problem being is the adaptability to the times. That's, in my opinion, out of most things that Nick Saban has done in his career, the one thing that I'm most impressed by is his ability to adapt, because the 2011 Bama team is so different than the 2021, and it's a testament of his ability to adapt. But even himself got to a breaking point, i.e. why he retired. To speak a little bit about Mike Gundy, because I think a lot of people saw how it ended and how ugly it was and how much friction became the breaking point, the boiling point between leadership and him. But let's not forget, he started in 2005 all the way to 2025. He was the second most tenured head coach in all of college football, a legend in the game. If you have never seen this, and if you've never heard of this quote, and you are a younger college football fan, I implore you to just Google into YouTube, "I'm a man, I'm 40, Mike Gundy." Because I don't want to, without Mike Gundy, I don't want to know what pops up. But I guarantee you that clip will pop up. That is the perfect entirety of what he was as a head coach. Going 170-90 over his tenure at Oklahoma State, 8 times getting 10 plus wins, 2011 Big 12 winner, only having a losing record twice. That is a legend right there. Now, do I think that Mike Gundy's ever going to coach again in the college ranks? I more than likely think he will. It depends on when. Is he going to be someone that waits a little bit, a couple years to kind of see the lay of the land, maybe adjusts his practices, kind of like what we saw with Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys, obviously not hoping for the same result, but I could see him taking a step back from the game and reassessing his process, because clearly it fell off a cliff after 2023. They had that incredible run getting to the Big 12 championship against Baylor. And from that point forward, it just continued to deteriorate. And it really felt like this season, after being that close to leaving the program, you almost begin to wonder what was the point of even bringing him on for this year if it was a leash of 4 weeks. It felt like a man that wasn't really in it. He would never tell you that. You could keep him off the record all you want. He would never admit that. But Mike Gundy, you could tell that saga, that chapter was already halfway closed. I said it when it was time to potentially move off of him just a week ago. I said, when you are replacing the greatest coach in your history, you need as much runway as possible to vet the candidates and know exactly who you're going for to give you the best chance. Because the notion of what we talked about with other coaches like Dabo, maybe even Penn State with Franklin, when we're saying, yeah, this is good, but it's not good enough and we have to move off of them, you, as a institution, you have to make sure that your next step, you are 110% confident that he's going to take you to the next level, or you're going to look like a dumb staff. You're going to look like you moved off the best thing since sliced bread. If you move off of someone because you want to elevate your program and you completely misstep. Now, I will say for Oklahoma State, a program that feels a little bit dead in the water, needed some juice. I feel for the players, especially because it does feel like an empty season. It wouldn't shock me if you see some red shirts. Obviously, we've already seen some decommitments of their current high school class. So when we talk about the future of Oklahoma State football, I really am at a loss for words of what the expectations are. I've heard a couple candidates. Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. Apparently, according to Josh Pate, that's the leader in the clubhouse. Colin Klein, selfishly, if you're not watching this on the video version of this podcast, I'm wearing a Texas A&M hat. Selfishly, I wouldn't want him to go because clearly in this second year, he's taken a jump. And what would be more shocking is if Kansas State was to move off of Chris Kleiman and they are not the ones that get Colin Klein. If you don't know who Colin Klein is, longtime Kansas State quarterback, rival Johnny Manziel in the Heisman race in terms of quarterbacks, right there with Manti Te'o. Incredible player. It was the Kansas State version of Tim Tebow. But it's a more wait and see. There's a lot of different candidates, and when it happens this early, it's one of those things where we're going to hear a lot of different names. Oklahoma State's going to do their due diligence, as they should. But I'm very interested on who they go with next. I thought potentially a Gruden would be a fun option, but I'm really aligning with potentially Arkansas getting him. But shout out to Mike Gundy, a legend of the game. I think people don't talk about his impact and what he was able to accomplish at Oklahoma State and how impressive it was. We have some news to break. Not really news, honestly. Of course, as soon as I post a video talking about John Mateer, he's going to win the 2025 Heisman. A couple of days later, news breaks that he broke his hand. He's going to be out for 3 weeks. I believe somehow, by the way, if you have not followed this, they posted about like what surgeon fixed his hand because he had to do surgery. I believe it completed today. That in a message board, the same doctor that did it posted in the message board, projecting potentially 15 to 30 days. So let's talk about the two sides here. Oklahoma football obviously is having a Florida-like schedule that is very much backloaded. We won't go through the entire schedule. If you want to go see it, you can go find it. But it's been something that we've been talking about since the offseason. And this is a brutal blow, but how bad? Because honestly, if it were to happen at any point in the season, this might be the best window, depending on how long it takes. Now, there is obviously a caveat to this, but you didn't want it to be in the bulk of your SEC play. So they're going to be on a bye week this week. Full 7 days, no football. Then you're going in to play Kent State. Kent State's not a good football program. So we're at 2 weeks, 14 days. Maybe shaving a couple days, maybe it's 12. Then you have another game week, and then you go play Texas. Now, it wouldn't shock me if Oklahoma throws out a couple rumors here and there that maybe John Mateer could be ready for that Red River game. Because I know Oklahoma fans would love it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were to put those rumors out there to leave it in the gray area for Texas in terms of their preparation. Because who they are going to play for Kent State is Michael Hawkins Jr. And Michael Hawkins Jr. is someone that played last year. He even played in Red River. Now, the problem is a couple of factors. Obviously, it's not John Mateer. John Mateer leading the Heisman race right now. And we'll talk about that probably at the end of this weekend because I suspect that there's going to be a new Heisman leader for obvious reasons with how loaded the slate is and yada, yada. You get the point. But when we're talking about Michael Hawkins Jr., a lot of people are just going to look back to last year and almost forget the context of how bad the situation around him was. To my understanding, we're talking about a freshman quarterback being thrown into a bad offensive system that Arnold was not successful in, that they fired the OC at the end of the year, paired with 5+ wide receivers being out. I think there's a lot more hope for a guy like Michael Hawkins, at least in this intermediate stint. I think he is a guy that has bought into the program because he could have easily transferred, especially after Mateer joined. And is he going to be at the same level? No, but I don't think Oklahoma needs him to. I think they desperately need a guy like Jaden Ott to be at 100%. And what we thought Jaden Ott could be, that would be massive for Oklahoma because their rushing attack was solely predicated on the legs of a John Mateer. And to be fair, Michael Hawkins does bring that. The question does become through the arm, but he's in a better system. He's got a better defense that's going to give him better opportunities. It doesn't feel like if he doesn't score here, he's never going to see the ball again. It's just going to increase the lead. And if it's just Texas, and I say just Texas, it's literally their biggest game of the year. But if that, in the grander scheme of things, is the only time that Michael Hawkins has to be the starting quarterback, and then boom, we put John Mateer back in for the rest of the year, knowing how well they played up to this point, being undefeated, you could live with that. You truly could live with that. Obviously, it's also not to say that Michael Hawkins can't beat Texas. We've seen how bad their offense has been. So why not just say potentially Michael Hawkins, after a year since playing Texas with basically no wide receivers, no offensive identity whatsoever, and in much improved defense, he could step in and win that. But we'll get to that point when we do. I don't think OU is cooked. I don't think Oklahoma is in a, I wouldn't say bad position, because no starting quarterback injury puts you in a better position by any means. But I would say that Oklahoma is far from in a never. I think the best way I could say it, Oklahoma is just not going to be in a position right now based on just solely this injury that takes them out of like college football playoff contention. Now, if this was happening in the bulk of like October, November, where their season really gets difficult, I would be talking about that, because they couldn't afford maybe 3 straight losses. But it's a bye, Kent State, and then obviously Texas. Now, if that goes to South Carolina and John Mateer's not able to play, then I get worried. But it sounds like it's a broken hand injury. Surgery went well. I hope John Mateer gets better, because he is one of the more electric quarterbacks in the country. QB play has not been great in college football for this season. And I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for that electrifying player. Mateer kind of gave that to you, kind of the Manziel-esque plays, some of the plays we saw Baker do, some of the things that you'd see on the highlights. I think people kind of miss that. And Mateer was able to provide that. So I wouldn't say Oklahoma is cooked in any fashion. I do think the Heisman odds do take a dip depending on how quickly he comes back. But imagine the storyline of Mateer coming back for the Red River Shootout, known by no other name, comes back and beats Texas. Yeah, you could see him at New York, and he's already holding up the trophy. Let's talk about Ohio State going to Washington. Did you know the second longest home winning streak in the country doesn't belong to an Oregon, doesn't belong to a Texas? Obviously, Texas lost to Georgia last year in their home stadium. Just like the reminder of that. It's Washington. Now, we'll get to see what Jedd Fisch is really made of here. Obviously, the change of hands after Kalen DeBoer gets them to a national championship. And this is really Washington's big opportunity to step back into the national spotlight. As a fan of someone that is a fan of a team in the Northwest, they kind of get put into the closet. And then every once in a while, when they have a good enough team, they get a big opportunity. And you begin to wonder, with this Washington team and what their quarterback position is, a running back that I think is very good, in that home stadium, you feel like this is a huge opportunity for them to come back to national relevance. Because to get the public eye to focus on a Northwest team, you have to make a statement win. If you did not know, I'm a Seahawks fan. Go Hawks. They play tonight. My first question is, how is Ohio State going to handle Damon Williams Jr.? If you have not met or heard of or played on College Football 26, this quarterback, this dude is a gamer. He is a playmaker. He will ruin your Saturday if you let him. That plus a home environment and Jonah Coleman at running back, who is a bruiser, an absolute problem at the running back position. That is a recipe to put you in a very good position for a fast start. Because if you let Ohio State come into that stadium, first drive, boom, Jeremiah Smith, 65-yard touchdown, and all of a sudden the energy is out of the building, you can't afford that. Now, my big question here, outside of the quarterback battle, maybe what, Julian Saint's going to look like, and I think this does bake into it, my number one question is, Washington, are you going to go and stick with your original game plan on the defensive side of the ball? If you don't know what I'm talking about, they run a lot of man coverage at Washington. It just so happens you're facing Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, and Jeremiah Smith. A three-headed monster with a quarterback and Julian saying that it's to be seen if he could be the dynamic player to get the ball into those guys' hands. We saw it a little bit against Texas where he was a game manager. I don't know if he's a quarterback that he's a playmaker or a game manager, but regardless, is he going to be a threat to throw with anticipation and trust those wide receivers? Now, if Washington wins that battle with those defensive backs, which I think is a long shot, they probably win this game because of Damon Williams Jr., because of Jonah Coleman, because of all the factors that bake into it. This line started at 13.5 for Ohio State. I just recently saw it at 7.5. A 6-point swing is ridiculous. I think it's because when you're a Northwest team, you don't really get the spotlight, or initially. And as people started to click into this game and really understand what Ohio State's walking into across country, we've had that dynamic before. These Big Ten teams, because they're so spread out across the West Coast into the Midwest, these travel times are difficult. You have Ohio State fans on Twitter saying this is more scary of a home environment than, say, the whiteout. It's because they have to go cross country, and Washington, easily one of the most underrated home environments in the entire country. So what's the path to victory for Washington? Because my pick is going to be Ohio State. I will welcome being wrong here, but my pick is going to be Ohio State for a couple of reasons. Because the things that they would need for a Washington upset here would be a masterclass by Damon Williams. And that's not to say he can't do it, but I'm talking signature moment. We're talking about you as the Heisman favorite by the end of this game. Paired with the fact that their defensive backs don't have to win every battle with Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Innes, but they have to make enough plays where if you do get an opportunity, maybe Sayin underthrows the ball, it's not just a pass breakup, it's a pick. And I do think they're going to need maybe a special teams play going in their favor to really have this crowd in it for 4 quarters. I really do see this being a game that by the time of us entering the fourth quarter, everyone's putting their 4s up and everything, that this is a 1-possession game, maybe 1 play away for Washington to go and tie this game up. And then at that point, it's a 0-0 ball game. Whoever's going to be able to win this, we'll see in 8 minutes. In that moment, I'm trusting Ohio State to make that play much more than Washington. But that's not to say Washington can't make that play. And that's why they are definitely on upset alert this weekend. But I'm going to trust in that moment, when that comes up, maybe it's a 50-50 ball to Jeremiah Smith to extend that lead from maybe 7 points to then 13 or 14, or maybe it's a 3-point lead that turns to 10 points, that Ohio State's going to be able to make that play. So I'm going with Ohio State to win. And with that in mind, welcome and thank you to the Stadium Pulse. If you like this show, please let me know down in the comments. I kind of like the phone. The camera looks a lot more smooth. So I do appreciate anyone who watches this show. Our numbers have actually increased every single time we've done this show. We're starting to have people talk in the comments. I promise you, it's my favorite part of the show is to react to y'all's comments and to build this community up. So with that in mind, thank you guys so much for watching the Stadium Pulse. It is a college football show, only college football. And I will see you guys next time.